Tried to say was the players get dependent.
Tell them you please go and play.
Don't sleep in the night also, just 4-5 hours.
Just take help of the experts because they
the feedback the parents give to the child.
Bhushan, I really congratulate.
It's great to have these talks
Yes,
between.
the parent plays the most important role in a sportsman or players.
See, the belief that sports and academics are
Usain Bolt record, and if you look at these,
Tell us about that toughest phase of your life.
But I got into comfort zone and
see, every day there are so many things which are
one of the biggest problems for athletes who don't understand is that.
But my coach Ripasa, who always motivated me,
there were other riders also, but I was not.
I want to kind of just focus.
2 point of view, what a kid likes and what the parent want them to do, right?
The mentality of every person is a security.
Probably go 70% of my sessions for preparing on my strength.
Like the physical fitness is very crucial when you're actually playing in a tournament.
I think one of the key things is that be courageous.
So devotion is, I think, a much greater level of dedication.
Reason is my family upbringing and family background. So the
coach has a different mindset.
Hello everyone, welcome to Sport Champ Live Talk Show, a Journey of Sports, episode 29. I'm Bhushan Thakur, founder and editor-in-chief of Sport Champ, a sports education magazine. Our today's very special show is on nutrition in sports. We have a very special guest with us today who will be sharing key insights which will guide many in their journey of sports. Our today's special guest is Geetha Ghaliyavar, sports nutritionist and associated with International Olympic Committee. Welcome, Geetha. Welcome to Sport Champ Talk Show.
Thank you, Mr. Bhushan, for the warm welcome. And honestly, it's such an honor and pleasure to be on your show among all your other eminent guests. Thank you.
What do you think about this Sport Champ Talk Show? You must have seen some of the episodes in the past.
Right, a few live, and I did visit some of your recorded sessions, and I think it definitely gives me a deeper insight, hearing the perspective of an athlete, and all of your players have been so accomplished in their own arena. So I'm happy to contribute, and I hope the players and parents can really have a great learning in this session.
Thank you so much, Geetha. Now, as you know that we start with a Sport Champ challenge. in the beginning of the episode. I hope you are ready
Great.
to accept this challenge.
Yes, I'd like the surprise.
Okay, so the challenge is I'll ask you 7 words and you have to instantly tell me what first thing comes in your mind after listening to those words.
Yes, sure, let's.
So my first word is success.
Hard work.
Okay. Honesty.
Honesty is permanent.
Okay. Fulfillment.
Satisfaction, contentment.
Okay. Patience.
Patience. A lot of hard work.
Okay. Dream.
Daily.
Hope.
Everlasting.
And my last word is courage.
Courage. Determination.
Okay. So here we finish our Sport Champ challenge. I think your entire pressure is released now.
Yes, honestly, I think my subject, the confidence in my subject, I think is so much easy. And honestly, I must confess, I was so apprehensive.
Okay, so
Thank you.
let's start with the first question is tell us about your background. How did you get into sports nutrition and what are the current projects which you're working on?
So that's very interesting. I probably would have pursued psychology, English, journalism in the college where I studied, one of the best colleges in Bangalore. It's an all-girls college, Mount Carmel. But unfortunately, around the first year of pre-university, I lost my father to cancer. He was unwell for about a year and a half. So, but my mom was very keen that I pursue science. And that's how I had to swap. And, I studied integrated home science. And when I had to do my master's, obviously, with the limited exposure we had back then, and we were totally, self-driven. We managed from college applications to, travel bus pass. We managed everything on our own. In fact, I used to study on scholarship too. So I studied in Bangalore University, and that's when I realized I think nutrition is what I wanted to specialize in my master's, and there has been no looking back after that. So right now, I also teach nutrition for the Cambridge examination. So I am a faculty and the head of the department. Apart that, I have, of course, I take a lot of pride in helping the community, put up a lot of posts, or try in whatever limited time that I get. In my free time, I'm trying to learn the skill of social media.
Okay. So let's start with what are the common myths in sports nutrition, according to you?
Oh, there are plenty. And I think from players having misconceptions of do not eat whole eggs, egg yolks are bad, sugar is very bad. So athletes don't realize the glucose or the sugar is the crux of their energy, especially when they have higher training load or longer duration of exercise. So do not consume. I've had a badminton player who would not touch white rice. She was just living off brown rice. So all grains are good, but then you can definitely manage to juggle or to swap between your grains based on the time before workout, after workout. So there is a science to, again, playing around with the glycemic index or the amount or the way the grains get absorbed. So sugar is bad. Sugar is definitely needed for athletes in the right amount at the right time, especially during training. White rice can be had after your training, especially as a post-workout meal. So egg yolks are very nutritious. Egg yolks are very rich in from your B12, your iron, omega-3, vitamin E, biotin. All the good things are in the yolk apart. Of course, there's also marginal addition of protein because otherwise egg white is just 3.5 grams albumin. So athletes are sometimes very wary, or sometimes they think that only if you eat a chicken or a non-vegetarian food, you have better stamina. And these are, skills and the body composition changes to stamina takes a little bit of persistent, consistent work on a regular basis. So nothing changes overnight. So, a lot of misunderstandings in so many ways. And as we go along, and I think when we address, topic-wise discussion, we will be covering a lot more, which will give clarity to athletes.
Okay. So, Geetha, what are the foods and fluids to be taken before, during, and after training sessions, and also more importantly during tournament time?
Okay, so this is a very good question, and I think this is extremely helpful because I know a lot of coaches also ask me this, especially when children have very early morning training sessions, especially when they are at at the facility at about 5:30 in the morning. A lot of these younger athletes, especially, they have lots to juggle in their school and college. They're very tight schedule. There's assignments to catch up and very limited sleep time. So many of them do not understand the importance of having a pre-workout meal, especially early morning hours. Also, sometimes is very difficult to consume a lot of food, or also difficult to eat. So a lot of athletes skip that pre-workout meal, or sometimes they don't understand the importance. Again, there is no one size fits all. So it is, I think, important to understand what your goals are and where you stand in terms of body fat composition. So now in the later scientific evidences, we know something called as train low, which means that for training adaptations, in order to better your body composition, meaning that you can increase your increase your muscle mass and lower your fat percentage, you can actually look at working out in a fasted state. And that's advisable for several reasons based on your goals and on your objectives. So you cannot generalize that everybody ought to eat. It's good if you eat, because when you consume certain carbohydrate foods before your workout, be it a simple banana from your rice porridge, your malted kanji, like in where I'm from down south, so we call it kanji. So I don't know what it's called in Maharashtra, or like a gruel porridge.
Dalia or something like, which is porridge.
Absolutely. So in south we have malted, from ragi to rice to multigrain.
Correct.
A lot of mothers go really that extra mile to make sure they have all these pulses and nuts mixed together. So as simple as, because dals also give carbohydrate, any carbohydrate meal, from your slice of toast to banana to fruit to oats porridge, or even overnight soaked oats. So any carbohydrate meal taken before a workout can help, especially children when they're growing, they have a higher demand of calorie intake. And it's very difficult to just squeeze all the food either after training or at the end of the day. So it's important to understand the importance. It's like saying, I'm going to run a plane without, the fuel or petrol. It's not going to run on air. So you have to ensure that if you have a higher intensity training, or many times, like what our athletes do, they train for about 3 hours, sometimes even 4. They start early morning and the session goes on beyond 9 or 10, and they have sometimes not eaten. And so it's very important that if you want to have that sustained energy, you have to ensure that there is some amount of carbohydrate to the fuel that you give before your workout. So, but if you're looking at fat burning, you're looking at fat, training adaptation in terms of reducing your fat percentage, increasing your muscle mass, then if you're trained enough, it's like a keto diet. You don't overnight swap your energy systems or start burning fat as fuel. It takes a little time, adjusting and consistency over a few weeks. So that's very important if you're looking at pre-workout. And not to mention the importance of hydration, because early morning hydration, especially when you look at your urine color, if your urine color itself is quite concentrated, it is yellow, and you already know, especially that can be an indicator of dehydration. So and many times the athletes, or for that matter, even a regular individual himself, will have urine color which is quite, slightly more than pale yellow to being transparent. So excessive transparency is also not needed, because then you are hyperhydrated, or sometimes it can lead to other complications. So like, excessive water drinking, which we'll talk about, in the coming minutes. So water, just ensure that, whenever possible, about half an hour before, consume at least 1 glass, approximately 200 to 50 ml water. And of course, water needs to continue during training. But during training, you do not need any food in between. If your training session says just about your agility training or fitness conditioning, if it's just about 45 minutes to 1 hour, you really do not need to keep consuming food during training. You could do with plain water, But if the training session is a higher intensity training, if it's a longer duration of more than 1 hour, then you definitely need to look at about 30 grams or more carbohydrate foods. Now, what would be 30 grams of carbohydrate? Simple thing is one large banana, which is about 25 odd grams of carbohydrate. That itself will suffice. You don't need any fancy sports bar or any, expensive sports food. You just could manage with dates, raisins, banana, fruit, even a slice of bread. Even because you need fast absorbing carbohydrates when you are eating something in between training.
Geetha, how before, what is before the training session, for example, 6 o'clock, if your training session starts, how much time before you should take that carbohydrates so that it gives you better results?
That's a $1 million question. I think what I understand from my practice is they're very hard pressed for time. Like typically by the science, we know that you need to take the nitrate or the beetroot juice at least 2 or 2.5 hours before your workout. But what I understand is
because I just why I asked this question, because like when we used to be in Sweden, and we used to practice in the morning at 5 o'clock, 5:30. We used to get up at around 3 o'clock in the night, have our meal, and then go back to sleep.
Dear.
So that morning 6 o'clock, because then we are at the optimum level to give our best for our 3-4 hours of session. So was that was a point why I asked you this question.
Okay, so like I said, there are different strategies, and there has been a lot of evolution in sports nutrition. Today, we understand that we also need to focus on recovery and rejuvenation, which is extremely an important vertical of an athlete's life. So it's not just I've in fact had parents who wake up their children even on weekend to ensure that they eat something, not understanding that the child is actually making up for the lost sleep. And all the growth, the recovery, the muscle mass, the injury, everything is being addressed in sleep. So I think I'd beg to differ here, where I think it would be rather, practical to have a pre-sleep snack instead of waking up at 3 o'clock. So, like I said, practicality, like beetroot juice is ideal between 2 to 2.5 hours before your workout. But sometimes when it's not possible in the morning, then we look at it, look at fitting it sometime at the end of the day, for the evening session. So you have to be also very practical. So if we tell an athlete, you ideally want to give about, 45 minutes or so, approximately half an hour, 1 hour. Now, this also depends on how much time is at hand. And many athletes sometimes who find it difficult to eat will like to consume something like a, oats smoothie, oats banana smoothie, or a malt drink, which is very convenient because then it's easy for them to, drink a meal, then eat a food early in the morning. So there are many ways we can address this based on the comfort of every athlete. I also know some athletes who choose to eat high protein before the workout because they otherwise feel that with just carbohydrates like, rice, roti, chapati, whatever they eat before the workout, they sometimes may not, be satisfied, or they feel that their stamina dips. So they add about 10 odd grams of protein. It could be 2 eggs before your workout. But then we say that every sport again is different. If you asked a swimmer, will you be able to eat a very heavy meal and swim? It's going to be uncomfortable. Similarly, like a racket sport is again very high intensity. It depends on the kind of training that has been planned for the day. If you're looking at a very heavy meal, you are going to have food, kind of slushing around your belly, and you are going to sometimes be uncomfortable. But having said that, if you train yourself to consistently eat your food and be able to train consistently over weeks and months, then there is a possibility that your body has adapted to that. So everything is very individual. It depends on which sport and how comfortable the athlete is. So there are many ways we could address that.
Geetha, what duration you said? How much before you should have that? How many hours before?
Okay, so if it is a main meal, say for example, if an athlete is having an evening training, you may want to give 2-3 hours of gap minimum after a main meal, be it lunch, or breakfast. Sometimes even athletes train in the midday, But now if it is something where you have no time at hand, like I suggested, you could do something easy that is like a oats banana smoothie or a malt or a porridge where it's lighter. I also have athletes who just drink a glass of milk. So I say no need to add a large banana because milk also has some lactose or carbohydrate in that. So you could just add a small banana along with your milk. At least it's better than not eating anything, especially if they are children who are in their prime growing years in puberty, or if a child who has weight issues, who's underweight, he's also going to lose a lot more weight, not just weight, but also muscle mass. So in those kind of athletes where we are really concerned about, what their goals are, then the pre-workout meal is definitely important. Post-workout meal, similarly, immediately when we say the prime window period of, your recovery or your refueling, not just your liver muscle glycogen, because again, the liver glycogen can last only for about over an hour of activity, right? So based on your training itself, how intense is it? So you really want to consume a high carbohydrate and a high protein meal. So typically 3:1. So which means, like, say, for example, if you've eaten 3 slices of bread or 3 fulkas, so approximately 45 grams. So 1/3 of that should definitely be your protein, meaning it could be 2 eggs or a huge glass of milk. So where you are looking at that 10 odd grams of protein. So high carbohydrate, high protein immediately after workout, particularly in the first, few minutes, ideally whenever possible. So you do not want to wait till you reach home, especially that's what we understand from some athletes who are very kind of fussy or are very concerned about carrying, a tiffin or, something packed. So then carry a liquid meal, easy to drink, or based on the weather. Bangalore has been very warm last few days. So sometimes, the curd based, just your curd and your lassi or your fruit smoothie sometimes cannot be very appetizing, especially with the summer. It can go sour, or there are many ways you could change that. You could just keep it in the fridge or keep it cold, or you could do a milkshake with dry fruit. So just playing around with the likes and dislikes of the athlete and just giving them alternatives, but the goal remains the same.
Correct. Geetha, what suggestion you would like to give to vegetarians who or vegetarian players as they struggle a lot with protein intake?
So yeah, I think this is something extremely important. Again, there's always a challenge of protein adequacy, particularly if they're vegetarians. And sometimes I've even dealt with some athletes who are not particularly inclined with consuming dairy. And if they don't like the smell of milk or do not consume milk, then there is a lot of pressure as on a dietitian to ensure that they have high protein in their meals. So then the easiest way for a vegetarian is definitely look at dairy, because dairy is not just high quality protein. A simple thing as low fat or skimmed or even a regular milk, based on what is your age, what is your goal, and what is your your body composition. Based on that, you can choose the amount of fat in your milk. Now that is a great recovery drink because it also has all the essential amino acids. It definitely has leucine, and now we know that it's leucine is what is very important in improving your muscle mass, especially after training, especially when you do fitness, conditioning, strength training. So based on the age again and parental consent, sometimes when we know that the training demand is extremely high and it's the competition season, we do not want the immunity to be compromised. So then we look at protein supplementation, and there are several ways to augment that. So you could, if there is a deficiency, if you feel you're falling short of protein, or for example, if the athlete is traveling, say in Bangalore, it's possible, you sometimes spend 1 hour or more than that on the road to reach the academy. So you do not want that, crucial time to be wasted, because when you train, it's not just that you burnt your glycogen, but there's also strain on your muscle, which means that you're not just looking at increasing your muscle glycogen or your liver glycogen. You're looking at increasing your muscle mass by helping the amino acids or the small blocks of your protein to rebuild your muscle. There's something called as catabolism, which means that when you train hard, there is also muscle being broken down. So when athletes kind of worry too much about the weight, the first thing I tell them is, just relax, because you really need to focus on body fat composition and muscle mass. So our criteria is to ensure an optimal amount of protein intake. Again, are you on a calorie restricted diet? Do you need a higher protein intake? Are you doing, is it a strength training day where you really need a high protein intake on that particular day? So in fact, protein intake or the protein target itself varies day to day.
Correct.
So it's very important that you are looking at, educating the parent and the athlete so that they understand this whole, the science to, muscle building.
So, what role nutrition play in recovery of muscles, and what happens in this process of recovery?
Several things. Firstly, you can maintain a lean body mass. So, which means that lean body mass is not just your muscle mass, but your organ,
Correct.
your bone weight, and your water. But somebody who's targeting, fat loss, or who's also looking at weight maintenance. The crucial thing here, as I explained, is that you do not want to lose muscle mass when you're looking at weight
Correct.
loss.
Correct.
Okay, so not just in terms of preventing your loss of muscle mass where there is breakdown of the muscle after intense training, but in order to also, like say DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, those guys who do not have enough adequate protein in their diet itself can again have severe DOMS. So the recovery process is much slower, and lack of sleep, that will again, kind of, exaggerate this whole thing.
So, what is nutrient deficiency, and what planning and measures to be taken for the same?
Okay, so this is an awesome question, and I think I'm glad that we're covering this. So what athletes don't realize is they're obsessed about, I need to perform. I have to give a better timing. My stamina needs to go up. And in racket sports, you have your technical terms. From your whatever your jargon. You know better than me. But thankfully, I've dealt with a lot of badminton players. So the understanding of the agility from so many things, the amalgamation of understanding training, developing the skill, the sports specific skill, but then again, when you say I'm very fatigued, or I think my recovery is poor, so they hear say a lot of these terms, or the coach sometimes also probably they have conversations with the coach, but they do not understand that sometimes, especially in vegetarians or even vegans, especially in growing children, pre-puberty or in adolescence, there are definitely some nutritional challenges, which is like, it could be as simple sometimes when the athlete says, I'm very tired, and you have to look at the blood parameters or the diagnostic blood test, because sometimes there is severe anemia. And when I say iron deficiency anemia, you're not just looking at nutritional or medicinal supplementation, and that's vital. Without that, there is no, because when you eat a food, it's a very slow process. Digestion of iron could be anywhere, say 10%. That is absorption. Yeah, absorption of calcium can be as little as 30%. It's so complicated. The nutrient interaction. The iron itself needs, intrinsic factor, B12, your folic acid, so many things involved. And similar with calcium. Calcium again needs calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, vitamin D. There's nutrient interaction. If you are a vegetarian, there's very high amount of your phytates or phytic acids in whole grains, your pulses, your dark green leafy vegetables have oxalates, your tamarind has tannin. So if you drink tea, coffee with your food, so it's kind of very complicated. So then what you need to address is, is there nutrient deficiency in terms of typically what we see is iron, vitamin D, which is again now very crucial with the pandemic. We've been talking of how the prognosis of coronavirus itself is so much better with people who are maintaining optimal vitamin D status. So vitamin D, B12, iron, I think in growing children, and also in girls who attain menstruation, at puberty, they also lose blood. And if they are in a racket sports, like even, your table tennis, now it's an impact sport. So there is, foot strike hemolysis, which means the RBCs break down easily or faster than those 100 days of their life cycle. So which means that you need to periodically, every 3 to 4 months, or at least once or twice in a year, you need to address this. You need to have these blood parameters, screened, and ensure that these athletes, when they say, when the coach, or for that matter, even parents hear children say, I think I'm very tired, I feel sleepy, I especially after they eat. And it's understandable. Some of these athletes wake up at 4 in the morning. I can't even, I don't know when I woke up last at 4. So probably when I was studying. So yes, these athletes do wake up very early. So it's natural, but they'll feel a bit sluggish and slower after eating food because the blood supply does go to the stomach and there is digestion, taking place. So you need to kind of, look at it as a clinical symptom and say, why is the child complaining of, of this? So, and you need to look at it very keenly. And many times, there are these nutritional deficiencies, and it's best to address them based on the severity of how low the blood level is. Then you have to be scientific in your approach to say what is the age appropriate dose, how long would you need to do this, and also the safety. Is it ethical to do it in younger children? And if there's a nutritional deficiency, then there is no two ways about it. You have to address that, because then the outcome of the training is better. Within a matter of, I myself see that, matter of 3-4 weeks, the child bounces back, recovery is better, the stamina improves. There is, they're able to play for a longer duration without tiredness. So then you know that the child is not suffering or, is quite tired all the time, which again puts a lot of stress on your immunity. Your stress hormone cortisol goes up. So because food alone will not suffice if the deficiency is severe, because food takes a lot of time for it to be absorbed, and a lot of, weeks or months.
So here comes the next question related to that only. What roles sports supplements plays in sports performance, muscle growth, recovery, and what guidance you would like to provide on the same? And what is the right age to start supplementation?
Yes. So, like I said, if there is a nutritional deficiency, definitely we need to, kind of add those medicinal supplements, and which is the right thing to do. Now, but based on some fancy need of a child's peer pressure, because he sometimes sees another child in the academy take something, and they're always very, kind of curious to see what the other child is taking. And I hear this, or many times from anecdotal, or when you interact with them, they say, I think the child performs better because he's taking something. So there's always this notion. Probably they do, but you need to understand, as per the International Olympic Committee, the IOC consensus, unless and until there is a dire need of there is the nutritional deficiency, then you can, add the supplement. But if a child is very young, you really don't need unnecessary supplementation. As long as something very natural, like say nitrate, which is beetroot juice, or for that matter, there are a dime a dozen other half a dozen of these nitrate-rich vegetables. But understanding anyway between, say, 400 to 500 mg nitrate. So that means your rocket leaves, or your arugula, or spinach, baby spinach, palak, lettuce leaves, beetroot. Now beetroot also, 400 to 500 grams is a lot of beetroot. So it's, impossible to eat a huge amount of half a kg of beetroot every day. So just to be practical enough to squeeze in some nitrate-rich vegetable here and there, or sometimes even periodization, what we call as during the tournaments, during competition season, when the demand is very high. Because racket sports again is very high intensity workout. So if you see the Australian Institute of Sport, the Group A, evidence-based supplementation. So from whey protein, from sports foods like sports drink, gels, be it whey protein, which is whey isolate. Again, so there's a whole science to how you can, strategically use them even below 18 years of age, provided that there's a justification of the need, and maybe it's a very peak season, and the child has those demands, and you can kind of restrict it to only those few weeks, or just around that competition time, and then wean them off. From in adults, creatine is very helpful, because again it's a high intensity sport. So from creatine, beta alanine, buffering agents, I personally not work too much with sodium bicarb, because it can cause a lot of gastric distress. So that's again nothing but cooking soda, so it can irritate your stomach. Caffeine again, very, very small dose of caffeine can be used, because it's a stimulant. It stimulates the central nervous system, so which means that sometimes either taken towards the fag end of your training, or based on that sport. Again, if there's a sprint event for 10 seconds and you just want to take it strategically the right time before an event. So there are several supplements which can be used like I told you, from the guidelines of the IOC consensus statement or the Australian Institute of Sports Group A evidence-based supplementation. So everything when timed right and needed can be very useful, but unnecessarily giving it for children below 18 years may not be the right thing. So also please don't do self supplementation. Yes, it's good to consult a qualified dietitian, because many times you tell an athlete there is a deficiency, say example vitamin D. You advise them to consume the supplement in a certain dose for a duration, but then they think that, oh my, it's extremely important, so they keep over consuming, or they just continue it as they please, without understanding that these are also certain nutrients which are fat soluble. They get stored in the liver in excess amounts. They can lead to toxicity or have side effects. There's always a nutrient interaction.
Okay.
So I think it's very important that athletes must be educated. So it's very important that they do consult a sports dietitian.
Correct. What are the basic things parents of younger sports persons should remember while designing or planning diet plan for their kids? As every mom is a mini dietitian, which it automatically happens. So what do you think on the same?
Yes, I have a lot of respect for parents, and I've interacted with all these, the parent community of the athlete, and I think they are the backbone or the pillar of the success of every athlete. So I have immense and huge respect for the parent community. Now, I think, as I said, I think you actually said that they are dietitian themselves, and but just ensuring that the child in some way, whenever possible. I know that sometimes children can be fussy or they forget, but hand holding them, educating them, just ensuring that like your pre-workout, whatever little food they can offer, or ensure that they kind of encourage them to manage or inculcate independence, especially your travel kit when you go to the training. Just a reminder of have you picked up your milkshake, or of course they physically also put it all together. Many of them also travel to the academy with their children, kilometers and hours away, to and fro, wait in the parking. And I think the entire, their focus is the child's training and sports. So I think a lot of other aspects which we've also covered is pertinent to this, what you asked me, how parents can help. So just, I think, also being a part of when you're counseling the player itself, when the parent is involved, because personally for me, when younger children are involved, we always have one parent, always as a part of the counseling. So that way you kind of educate the parent too. So that way that the whole family also gains the benefit of, healthy eating, and there is the entire family's well-being taken care. So just small things like this to just be, kind of cajoling, bullying. Sometimes I'm a mother myself, so I think just try all your tactics to ensure that the child is, having a better lifestyle. Particularly sleep, highly overlooked, because in your entire process of recovery itself, what I have noticed is that the athletes always have a challenge of adequate sleep hours. So making up for your sleep debt, or the the lost number of sleep hours, at least twice a week, and sleeping those longer 2-3 hours each day, maybe Saturday or Sunday, I think is really important, to kind of look at bouncing back to training. Highly overlooked, so parents must ensure.
What I have seen, or what we keep on observing, is there is a sports person in one family, and there are 3 or 4 family members, and that person is focusing on diet, and there is a plan going on, and then they see say a burger coming home or a sweets coming home, and then that time that struggle starts. So where that person is maintaining a diet with lot of because he or she wants to get into sports and want to perform another thing. So but if there is a family dietitian, which there's what materials coming home is actually prescribed, so that everyone is having a fantastic diet. So what do you think about the same?
I love the advocacy of having a family dietitian. I think that's a really awesome suggestion. But of course, I think I'd also believe that uh, all foods are to be eaten, and there is no way to escape from processed food with so much choice available today. But as long as you are looking at, like you asked me, another thing that parent must focus on, high intake of fruits, vegetables, because when you have higher training, or for that matter, even with the pandemic, fruits, vegetables are what give you your antioxidants, and so it's so important that whatever is available or what's in season, just ensure you eat those, at least 2 fruits, or 3 to 4 cups of vegetables in children, and a little more in the adults. So which could be anyway over half a kg, which is actually quite a challenge for many of us. I don't think anybody actually consumes half kg of vegetables, leave alone additional 2 to 3 fruits. But the guidelines are this. So if you are able to maintain a ballpark reference point of healthy eating on a regular basis, I think one odd indulgence of eating a burger, pizza, a packet of chips, I think it's really not going to deviate you from your wellness goals, and it's also not healthy. So if you can just maintain a balance and then say, okay, once in a week or once in 10 days, you can eat what you want, any one item. Not that you kind of eat it all the time, be it even, your cream biscuits to butter cookies to anything that's highly processed, a lot of sugar, trans fat. So it's not very beneficial for athletes. So as long as you're looking at whole foods on a regular basis, so be it your fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, anything that kind of, is homemade or typically home cooked meals, then one odd deviation, I think, even for the player or for the family is okay. And that way, I think it's good that they are not too kind of dejected with this whole process.
So there should be a cheat day once in 15 days or 30 days, but many times it has been seen that cheat day comes alternate days.
That's what I said.
That is the problem.
True. I can totally relate to that. If you are looking at maintaining your health goals and you're really working very hard, and if you have the distraction of what you see and what is readily available for you, and you are then obviously going to be your discipline is going to be challenged. So I'm not denying what you're saying. I think when a person has an objective, then it goes without saying that the family needs to be supportive of that.
Correct. So what are the macros and microcycles to be planned and monitored during peak season and off season?
If you see the peak season, like I said, the aircraft needs the fuel. So there is no cutting, corners there. So you need a high calorie diet. If you're in the peak season in the competition cycle, you have to just focus on, adequate calorie intake, high carb, definitely high protein. A lot of fruits, vegetables, and goes without saying your hydration, even your fruits, like simple things like your pineapple, tart cherry, watermelon with the white portion, citrulline malate, beets. A lot of these things are extremely important to reduce the inflammation, reduce the DOMS, So you cannot do too many changes in the peak season. So even similarly in the competition, you want to really do the tried and tested, methods of your food and other approaches. Now, but in the off season, that gives you a lot of leeway on how you can play around with your food and definitely your training load. So there it's very important, and I think that should be the strategy or the way to address your body composition changes. If you're looking at, increasing your lean body mass, looking at targeting at fat burning, that's the time you really want to focus on your, weight bearing exercise or work around your, it could be as simple as if you were used to eating 4, 5, 6 chapatis, and you see that in younger athletes. You just have to understand that, okay, maybe instead of eating 2 eggs, I need to kind of add another 4 egg whites to bump up my protein intake in the next meal. But then I need to eat, say, 3 chapatis only. So it could be as simple as eating, 1 katori or 2 katori rice, or 2 katori, 2 chapatis lesser in that meal, but ensuring a higher fiber intake. Whole grains, or otherwise also you need 50% of your intake is whole grains, because that's where you get your fiber, your micronutrients, B1, which is very important for your energy metabolism, your micronutrients like your selenium, the whole grains and pulses or high protein food. So along with your fitness conditioning, body weight exercise, so that's where you can kind of really in the off season target really what you're looking ahead for your next training season. So the planning should actually start, backwards. So it's the backward planning. So then you do the scaffolding and say, okay, this is my target, and I move from here. Because honestly, you cannot reduce your fat percentage less than a month and 45 days. So you really kind of have to target your weight training slowly during your off season.
Correct. So my last question to you is, considering the pandemic period, and there are some few sports persons also who have got COVID and then they have recovered also. So what would you recommend diet post-COVID to regain strength?
We cannot, kind of get into the specifics here, because I understand that this is totally uncharted waters, and we every individual is reacting different. Somebody has mild symptoms, somebody has fever, and so there are a plethora of different kind of symptoms. But overall, I think just as and when you recover and you are better in about a couple of weeks time, going back to your normal routine. I think as it is with the pandemic, to have a sense of orientation to day and night has caused quite chaos. So just going back to your routine, getting enough sleep, to your early morning sun exposure, because that's where your serotonin releases to early morning sunlight. And serotonin releases early morning, but helps you sleep in the night. That's the beautiful, the intricacy of nature. So then, of course, eating a balanced diet, fruits, vegetables. I think there's been a lot of talk on your kada to, I don't know, your herbs, a lot of people have been unfortunately talking a lot about your over supplementation or your zinc, vitamin C. So my personal take will be, I'm not the expert here, but my advice will be, do limit it for a smaller duration till you have your symptoms improve. Do not overdo it, like I've been talking about how overdoing zinc also can have nutrient interaction, reduce copper, reduce good cholesterol, HDL. There's also an interaction with iron, and so you don't want to overdo anything. So you kind of follow everything with caution. And vitamin C, now mangoes are in season, so which means that you really don't have to reach out for any fancy kiwi or some fancy berries. What is available, it could be as simple as just one guava, which could be 5 rupees, 10 rupees, or papaya. Vitamin C, thankfully, is available in such an array of food choices. So eating simple, and because vitamin C gets washed out in the urine, you can't store it. So which means that you need to eat, space it out sometime with, one with breakfast, or sometime around, your afternoon, evening, wherever possible, as simple as your peppers to anything. So look at food, maintain a healthy, balanced diet. Moderate exercise has been so vital right now. We also know that so much research is also now being emphasized on how you need to keep physically active, because the ones who are active have some exercise. And in fact, I just recently read an article which said it's not about 60 minutes of activity or those 150 minutes of activity 5 days or whatever. Basically 150 minutes a week is about typically 30 minutes 5 days a week. But those guidelines now are questioned. They say that every hour you sit, you need to move 10 minutes or more.
Correct.
So it's very interesting. I mean, we knew that they said sitting is the new smoking, and with the pandemic, there's been a lot of, change in lifestyle, and so not everybody is kind of geared for a routine. So it's so important to understand this. Just even when you're sitting, just walk across, or instead of just having a water bottle, just go to the kitchen, or whatever you can, some stretching or movement. So exercise is not the only thing. Not that you are a couch potato, but just exercise alone is not going to suffice. So now this was an eye opener for me. For every hour you sit, I think the guidelines, if I'm not mistaken, was you need to keep active for at least 10 or 12 minutes. So
even the Apple Watch doesn't let you sit every 1 hour. It gives you a pop-up. That you have to breathe or you have to walk.
Wonderful. We need both of it right now in the pandemic because we
Correct.
know that the outcomes of your immunity itself is dependent on how physically fit you are, and that's the
Correct.
best thing you can do for yourself.
Correct. So now we start our rapid fire questions. And
Great.
so my first question is, if you had your human head but body of an animal, then which animal would you pick and why?
Oh dear. Okay, maybe I'll pick two. Either a puppy because they're so adorable and they can really just kind of fill your lacunae or kind of distract you, or maybe even an elephant because they're so so huge, but they're still so intelligent and so gentle.
So head of your human head and body of an animal. So
Right, either an elephant
okay.
or
Yeah.
or a puppy.
Or a puppy. Okay. When you are not working, how do you like to spend your time?
Oh, I'm such an outdoor person, and I think with the pandemic, I cannot even imagine for over 13 months we've been homebound. So I love being out, and evenings we're always out walking. I'm so gregarious, so I like socializing. So I'd like to be outdoors.
Okay. What is one thing you are excited about on your any upcoming project?
Upcoming project. I have another seminar coming up for tennis, so that's something to look forward to.
Okay. What was your favorite subject in school?
Biology, I think, or physiology.
Okay. Who is your best friend and why?
I think I'll say myself, but I've been very fortunate. I have a lot of friends, but many times I think at the path of life you have yourself to kind of have yourself as a companion most times.
Correct. So you enjoy your company.
True. I mean, going by the circumstances, I've not had parents, and it's my siblings live far away, so the boys are now busy, and so I'm glad that I keep myself occupied. I enjoy my courses I take up, and something to read, and having called off a PhD, there's something or the other I keep doing. So
Okay. What is your hidden talent?
hidden talent. I used to do a lot of handicrafts, and I paint a lot, paint, sketch, and I in fact used to do a lot of work with some craft work, which I think ever since college I've given up. But I did a lot of that, and also our courses demanded that. So much of child development, early childhood care, and even with nutrition, we had so many teaching aids to make while in college. So I think I that creativeness I think has come as a gift from my father, who's to be also very creative.
Correct. If you have had to eat one thing for every meal going forward, what would you eat?
If I had to eat one thing, well, I'm a foodie, so I love food, and we're mostly vegetarian at home. Some of them who've known me closely understand my weakness for a biryani. Yes,
Okay.
so I wish I could stomach
Veg
that.
biryani.
No, a chicken biryani, or I'm mostly 99% veg.
Okay. Okay.
So probably a bit of
If
biryani, or
okay, biryani. So biryani on chicken one or the veg one? Chicken biryani.
probably a chicken biryani, or something with chocolate.
Okay, fantastic. If you are given an opportunity to spend a day in someone else's shoes, whose life will you choose and why?
Oh, this is a tough one. I think I'd like to do this all over again in my own life. I think now that I have kind of grown into an adult. Sorry, this was a rapid fire round, but they've been very elaborate answers. Probably do a lot of things differently now this time.
So Okay, so your own self.
True.
What one thing your parents taught you that completely changed your life?
What parents taught me? I lost dad so early. It's almost 25 years now. Sometimes I wonder, yeah.
So
But
I'm
yes, my
refreshing, I
father,
think.
yes, but my father was a very, very affectionate and a very kind person. I wish now that I am self-sufficient, I wish that I will be able to walk his, ways.
Okay. So what does that they have taught you? Anything which you remember?
Yes, my father was a very kind person and helped a lot of people while he was around. A self-made
Okay.
man, but
Okay.
very contented.
Okay.
So
What's
I
the
hope I
first
could.
career you dreamed? Sorry.
No, no, not at all. Please go on.
Okay. What's the first career you dreamed of having as a kid?
Oh, I think a dozen of them. I wanted to be a teacher, which I am anyway. I wanted to be, I think, a pilot. I think I remember only these. But I changed. I changed a lot of careers.
Okay. Who or what was your biggest teacher? Who or what was your biggest teacher?
Life. Yes, life has. I've been very
Okay.
grateful. I've had a lot of opportunities, and life has taught a lot of things. Unfortunately, it comes late in life. I wish it had come early in adolescence or early young adulthood.
So that is my next question to you also. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
18 years. Oh, I was just out of PUC. So thank God I had a great childhood and a lovely college life. So I think I would definitely advise myself that plan your education. The regret I'll always have is not completing PhD.
Okay. So you'd like to do that?
Totally. I tell myself, be well planned. I wish I had cleared my JRE. So that would have been a great advantage in
Okay.
completing my PhD.
Super. Before we log off, what would you like to address all sports person and enthusiast of India? And if where people can reach you if they would like to get in touch with you?
So I think it's so important that an athlete is so passionate. Just keep at it. Don't forget the sportsmanship. That's more important. There is heartache in sports. Not everybody can win. Just see what you can do better, and to better yourself. That's what I'd say. And if you keep trying and striving, I'm sure you're going to see, a bright future. So that's what I'd say. And if you can reach out to me, probably my email ID or my social media handle. You could also reach me on LinkedIn. I'm Geetha GH.
Super. Thank you, Geetha, for such a wonderful experience and knowledge sharing, which will definitely guide many in their journey of sports. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bhushan. I'm really honored, and I really appreciate you having me on this show and hosting me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dear viewers, I hope you must have enjoyed the show and also learned a lot from this episode. Thank you and for watching, and keep liking and sharing. Thank you, Geetha. Thank you so much.